Movies now are spending more than ever, with the average Disney film costing approximately $200 million, and despite the increases in budget, movies today just feel flat, sterile, and predictable. It's almost like the golden age of movies took place 20 to 40 years ago. During that period, we had some of the greatest movies of all time. The Empire Strikes Back, The Godfather, Jurassic Park. But when I think about a movie that isn't just technically brilliant, but also emotionally and culturally timeless, it's gotta be the 1979 Ridley Scott's Alien. This movie is an absolute masterpiece. It's more than just a science fiction horror film, it's an experience. It's a visceral, atmospheric, moody, fully realized world that feels just as real today as it did over 40 years ago. So what makes Alien so unforgettable? Why does it endure when so many technically advanced films fade into the background? To answer that, we need to look not just at the film itself, but at the psychology of why it works. Reason 1, it's analog. Movies today just don't feel right, which is strange because technology has advanced so far, even just in the past decade. Green screens can be keyed out with a single click, CGI is everywhere, stagecraft can project an entire digital world in real time, and AI can generate what once took armies of artists to create. On paper, films are more technically impressive than ever, but somehow they look and feel off. If I had to put a name to it, I'd call it the Marvel effect. Every one of those movies looks the same. It's not just the tone or the story, but it's the color, the lighting, the effects. There's this uniform glossiness that just gives it an uncanny quality. I mean, the suits just look unnatural and just how they bend to the actors. The backgrounds feel slightly artificial, like sets without weight. Deep down, we know it's not real. And that subconscious awareness breaks the immersion. Ironically, despite all these new technologies, many producers have drifted away from film, going to the easier workflow of digital, the artistry of practical set design and camera trickery. The sleight of hand that once defined cinema has now been replaced by shortcuts. I mean, it makes sense, right? Studios are in a race to churn out big budget content at breakneck speeds. I mean, I feel like every single month we have a new Star Wars release or some spin-off of it, or some superhero crossover. And to meet those difficult deadlines, they lean heavily on digital tools. Stagecraft, for example, is a brilliant invention that Disney has been using a lot lately, but when it's used consistently, it robs films of individuality. The result is a homogenized, factory line aesthetic. And it's not that the technology itself is bad, in fact, it's really incredible, but when it becomes the default, something's lost. The atmosphere, the texture, the magic of watching a world that feels lived in is lost. And I want to be clear that just using a film camera and building real physical sets isn't going to make a movie good, but I do think it is a key piece in what makes a movie timeless and, I mean, a literal piece of art. So all that to say, Alien wasn't crafted in an age that really had many digital shortcuts to rely on. Instead, entire worlds were built with paint, plastic, steel, and imagination. Set designers, model makers, and visual artists constructed the world by hand. It felt like a world that could exist. That immersion brought us closer to the screen. This dedication puts the actors in a world which I think has a huge effect on how they perform on screen. They're not going up some CGI ramp, they'll literally interact with the ship. The immersive quality in Alien's design has to be also attributed to how closely it mirrored the technology of its own era. Whether it be the ship's computer terminals with their chunky keyboards and blinking lights, and green monochrome screens, this wasn't so far removed from what audiences knew at the time in 1979. Meaning they had floppy disks, cassette tapes, reel-to-reel recorders, VCRs. All of this technology had weight, physicality to it. You pushed buttons, you pulled levers, you inserted cartridges. There was feedback, resistance, and sound. The Nostromo carried that same analog spirit into space. When crew members accessed Mother, the ship's computer, it looked clunky, like an overgrown mainframe that you might actually see in a research lab or a government office at the time. And I think that's exactly why it was believable. Yes, it was science fiction, but it was science fiction that was built on the foundation of now. The familiarity grounded the world, making it easier to accept the extraordinary. And from a technical perspective, the film cameras they used themselves played just as an important role as really anything else that I talked about. The warmth of the film, the sound design, and music all grounds the story in a way no digital trick ever could. The sets in Aliens aren't just backdrops, they're real. And when the terror arrives, that analog world makes it all believable, as if somewhere just beyond our reach, that was really happening. Number 2, the pacing. The second reason Alien stands as one of the greatest films ever made is its masterful use of pacing. Most modern blockbusters are terrified of silence. I mean, within the first minute, right, there's usually a car chase, an explosion, some monster roaring on screen. Studios today assume audiences have short attention spans, and they think without some huge spectacle, people will tune out. Aliens takes the complete opposite approach. For the first 7 minutes, there literally isn't a single word of dialogue. There's just a slow hum of the Nostromo waking up, the camera drifting through cold steel corridors, machinery flicking to life, and the eerie emptiness of space. It's difficult to imagine a studio today allowing that kind of patience, but Ridley Scott understood something. Horror is not effective because of what you see. It's effective because of what you anticipate. This anticipation builds for almost an hour before an alien even appears, and in that time, not much happens by traditional action movie standards. You meet the crew, explore the ship, and settle into their mundane routines. They argue about bonuses, complain about work, smoke cigarettes. These aren't the archetypical heroes or warriors that we're used to seeing. They're literally just truckers in space, working class people, just trying to do their jobs. And by focusing on the ordinary, Alien grounds us in a world that feels authentic, believable, and familiar. Psychologically, this is known as habituation. We become comfortable in the crew's routine, lulled into a state of ease, and that's what makes the eventual disruption so deeply unsettling. When the horror finally does arrive, the pacing pays off, but it's not some single explosion of chaos. Instead, it comes in fragments, each one breaking the silence before slipping back into the calm. The facehugger scene, the chest burster scene, the sudden burst of violence punctuated by the eerie stillness. This rhythm of chaos and calm plays on the psychological principle called the tension release cycle. This is where our brains experience a surge of fear, then a deceptive moment of safety. And that's right before the dread starts to build again. The silence in between each shock becomes just as terrifying as the shocks themselves. And this restraint extends also to how the creature itself is revealed. Many horror films ruin the mystery by showing too much monster, and they show it too soon. Alien shows astonishing discipline. The xenomorph is only shown on screen for 3 minutes and 34 seconds, which is kind of incredible for a movie called Alien. I mean, and then half that time too, it's in all of its different forms, from the egg to the chest burster to the baby, whatever. When the adult alien finally does appear, it's never in a full lingering shot. We just see flashes of movement and shadows, glimpses of its elongated head, or a close-up of its glistening jaws. This activates what psychologists call the imagination gap. This is when the mind tries to fill in what it can't truly see, and the images of our mind is often far scarier than anything the camera could show us outright. This balance between showing too much and showing too little is what keeps Alien terrifying. We never become desensitized to it. We never get the chance to grow comfortable. Instead, our brain keeps working overtime, searching for the full picture, and in the process, generating anxiety that lingers long after the scene's end. That's why decades later, people still remember their first viewing of Alien. Ultimately, the pacing of Alien isn't just about suspense. It's about respect. The film trusts the audience enough to sit in silence, to live in the in-between moments, to endure the waiting. And in doing so, it creates an atmosphere of sustained dread, rather than cheap jump scares. Reason number 3, the story. Now on the surface, Alien is a monster movie in space. It's a story about survival, power, and the limits of being human. The crew of the Nostromo aren't soldiers or heroes. They're just regular people, engineers, pilots, mechanics. Psychologically, we identify with them because they feel real. Their concerns aren't grand or epic. They're about pay, bonuses, contracts, and just getting home. The ordinary working class angle makes the danger they face all the more terrifying because it feels like it could happen to us. And then there's the company. They treat human lives as expendable. This is a reflection of something very real, our fear of being seen as just a number rather than people. In philosophy, this is kind of a utilitarian cruelty, reducing life to cost and function. And the alien itself becomes a physical symbol of that worldview. It's an organism with no empathy, only efficiency, reproduction, and survival. At the center of this is Ellen Ripley. Sigourney Weaver's performance doesn't just carry the film, it changed the idea of what a sci-fi hero could really be. Ripley isn't written as a stereotype, She's careful, logical, resilient, and she represents a different kind of hero. Not some macho savior, but a survivor. Psychologically, she reflects the resilience theory, the idea that we overcome trauma not by brute force, but by adapting and enduring. But Ripley isn't the only fascinating character in Alien. Ash, the science officer, adds an entire new layer. When it's revealed that he's actually a robot, we see another philosophical fear, the danger of technology serving profit over humanity. Ash admires the alien as a perfect organism, showing no concern for the crew's lives. In psychology, this ties to dehumanization, the removal of empathy, reducing people to objects. Ash blurs the line between man and machine, raising the unsettling question, what makes us human in the first place? His cold loyalty to the company reminds us that the real threat isn't just the alien, it's also the system and the technologies we create and the values we embed in them. And then of course, we have the alien itself, designed by H.R. Giger. It's more than a monster, it is a literal reflection of our deepest fears. Violation, parasitism, the fragility of the human body. It's biomechanical, but somehow organic, artificial, but horrifying. It's something that's both familiar but strange at the same time, which is why I think it is literally the perfect alien. And I think for most of us, this lingered in our minds for far longer than it probably should have. In the end, Alien works on a deeper level because it's not just about a monster killing people in space. It's about ordinary humans trapped between a soulless corporation and a nightmare creature that embodied all of our primal fears. It asks a question that still resonates today. In a universe that is indifferent and in systems that treat us as expendable, what does it truly mean to survive? Alien didn't just succeed as a film, it changed cinema forever. Its influences can be felt across science fiction, horror, and beyond. Without it, there's no Event Horizon, no The Expanse. The haunted house in space became a storytelling standard, and H.R. Giger's biomechanical aesthetic spilled out into fashion, music, and video games. It's not just a film, it's a cultural organism that continues to reproduce across media. And even the main character, Ellen Ripley, became more than just a character. Her resilience and complexity opened the door for strong, nuanced female leads in genres that had long been dominated by men. Even as sequels, prequels, and spin-offs expanded the franchise, none really ever eclipsed the original. Every return to this universe only highlighted how perfectly balanced the 1979 film was, how its physical sets, analog textures, and aesthetics, deliberate pacing, and primal storytelling created something that can't truly be replicated. Few films have ever achieved anything like this. Fewer still do it with such elegance, terror, and timelessness. Thank you so much for watching this. If you want more of me, please hit the like, the subscribe button. It means a lot to the channel to help it grow. And I really appreciate it, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.